Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a good day to you, and welcome to the Voice of the Cape's online Matric revision program conducted in collaboration with the Futures Academy Essays Online High School. And today we have Raihaanah Johnson back with us, and the subject covered in today's session is math literacy. And Raihaanah will obviously be sharing general tips with our grade 12 learners who are preparing for the examination. We encourage you to please like and share this revision session onto your social media pages. We are live on Facebook, the Voice of the Cape Facebook page, as well as the Voice of the Cape YouTube platform. Assalamu alaikum, Raihaanah, and welcome.
Walaikum salam, Juanita. Shukran for the intro.
Alhamdulillah. Yes, I think it's crunch time now for our grade 12 learners. And
Yeah.
mathematics, I think is something that if I can, reflect back when I was in high school, it does require quite a lot of practice. And so I'm very,
Yeah.
very confident in the tips that you will be sharing. And yes, I see that so many people have already joined this live right now. But do
Alhamdulillah.
remember, this is a recorded session. As mentioned, do like and share. So without further delay, I now hand over to you, Raihaanah, to proceed with this session for today.
Okay, shukran. Okay, so as Juanita mentioned, today we're just going to be going through, because you guys are writing on Friday, so I think today is probably the last time I'll do math literacy with you. And I just wanted to go through some general tips. We're going to go through some action words and general calculations that you'll need for both papers. Um, I just put this here, but you guys should know by now that you are writing on Friday. So this coming Friday and then the Monday after. So math literacy and math core, they write on the same day. So I'm hoping that now for the rest of the week and for the weekend, you guys are just working through your past papers, and that you've actually just gone through everything that you need to, and all you're doing now is past papers because that's very important. Okay, so to start our session off, I just wanted to give you guys just so I think you guys might have done this in English, maybe only like in grade 7 or 8, but in each subject there are words that come up in the exam and or in both exams, and the words are important, like to identify what they are actually asking. And I'm going to type it just so that I know it is neat and you guys can see. Okay, so one of the first words in maths lit is they might ask you to analyze something. And when they ask you to analyze, they're basically asking you to take this concept that they're asking you to analyze, separate it from everything else, examine it on its own, and then lastly, interpret it. Okay, so just for instance, would be if they give you a bar graph, let's say for instance, they give you a bar graph about, I don't know, um, let's see. So this is a bar graph, and it's, let's say this is math literature, and this is, I don't know, history, and it's about the amount of learners who take math, history, and math literacy at the school. So if they say analyze the bar graph, and specifically comment on the amount of learners who take, let's say, history at the school. So you'd look um, at the history bar. You'd say, okay, there are more learners taking history than there are math and math lit. Like if you look at math and math lit, um, it's a higher bar than math or math lit as well. So that would be you separating it from the other data, and then you examine it and you think about what history is like as a subject. Why would more people be taking that? So one reason would be that you can take history if you do both, like if you do math or if you do math lit. So that's why it's higher than the math and the math lit bar potentially. Another thing is that history is a nicer, like a slower subject almost. Um, and learners are going into more like the arts and the geography side of life, they take that. So it is just, I know history was my third elective, and I chose it so that I didn't have all very like intense calculation math like subjects. Um, so that's maybe one reason, and you'll use your own like sense and logic on this topic to interpret this. Okay, so that's just one idea. Another action word is, oh, maybe let's just keep doing it in this block. Another action word is calculate. So this, you guys might be like, but don't we know what it is? So yes, you do know what calculate means. So they just mean use numerical calculations to find an answer. Okay, so when they say calculate, so the reason I put this here was because sometimes they say calculate the value of whatever, and a lot of learners tend to just put the answers down. But because they've said calculate, they are looking for your calculations. Okay, so look out for that. Another one is if they say classify, which I haven't seen coming up often, but just in case it does. So when they say classify, they mean group topics or group concepts based on common characteristics. Okay, so for instance, if we're talking about income and expenses, and they say, okay, so a person spends money on X, Y, Z, and they say they spend on X, they spend on Y, they spend on Z, and then they say they get money for and that like XYZ. Okay. So for instance, here, if you were to classify these three, you'd say this is your expenses or your it's part of your expenditure. Okay. And you'll group them, and their common characteristic would be that you are spending like money's going out of your account. And then for this one, you'd say, okay, cool, it's money coming into my account. So that's my common characteristic, and we know that is called income. Okay. That's just like a very basic idea, but I think that helps. Um, Another action word would be compare, and compare is, so we actually get compare often in English as well, so that might be helpful for those exams, which I think you might have written today though. Okay, so if you're going to compare something, you point out or you show differences or similarities in objects or concepts or whatever it is that you are comparing. Okay. So you'll just say, trying to think of something that we could compare in Mathlet. So it could be in data handling again, and they could say, for instance, okay, so let's do this. For instance, if we add a block to our bar graph, and I'm going to make, no, that was too big. I meant it to be quite small. Okay, physical sciences. Okay, so we add a block, and they say compare the amount of learners that take physical sciences to the amount of learners who take, let's for instance say, maths. So you'd say, okay, the amount of learners taking maths is higher than the amount of learners taking physical sciences, and then you'd have to give a reason for that. So so the first thing is that all learners who take physics have to take maths, pure maths. Another thing is that physics is just generally seen as a more difficult concept, and then those sorts of things. But the important thing is that when they say compare, that you say, okay, this is much lower than this, because that's how you compare the two. Okay. So we did compare. Define. Define is also should be an easy one for you guys. It just means give a clear meaning for something. Okay, so if they ask you to define, I don't know, value added tax, you'd say it's the tax that is charged on items in a shop, like on specific items in a shop. Okay. Identify is another action word. And okay. There we go. And when we identify something, we just list its essential characteristics. So if we were to identify, let's say, a process, okay, so identifying would come up often, I would say, in the models part of your exam, and that's where they give you like instructions and they tell you this is how kennels put together, etc., etc. And if they were to tell you to identify the steps in the fourth stage of putting together something, you'd have to identify. So let's see. Um, what's a like really basic example? I'm gonna use like um, steps for making tea. Okay, that's something everyone should be familiar with. So they'll give you a diagram and they'll show you the pictures, okay? And in the first picture, it might be a cup, a person putting a tea bag into a cup. And they'll say, identify the steps for the first, well, identify what happens in the first step for making tea. And you just have to say, okay, cool, I can see there's a cup. So you can say, cool, a person places a tea bag into a mug, and that would be identifying the essential characteristics. Okay, so you just have to highlight exactly what's going on in that step. Um, let's identify, list. Okay, so another thing that could be a problem across subjects, if they specifically ask you to list things, so if they say the list the numbers in the table, all they want from you is to actually list the items. Okay, so it could be in a row. So it could be, so let's say for instance here they give you this is 54, I don't know, like 65, 44, and 30. And they say list the number of learners in each subject. So you'll go 54, 65, 44, and 30. That's listing it. Okay. So you literally list the items. And the most important thing for me would be that you don't give any additional information when you list them. Okay. Um, the next action word is if they say name the street, name the town, remember that you need to it's a proper noun that you're going to be looking for. Okay, if they say name the road that the person traveled on, then it's like M5 or N1 or something like that. But just remember, when you name, it's most likely a proper noun that you're giving. And then, oh no, this isn't our last one, but our second last one. If they say state, which does come up often um, in the math lit exams, state, like state the reasons for or something like that. With this, you have to give information about like the topic, but it's important to not do not discuss um, the topic. So if, for instance, let's just go back to our bar graph, they say state. No, let's actually go to our tea making scenario. So um, they'll just say state the method for making tea. All you have to do is say put the tea bag into the teacup, um, add the boiling water, stir the tea with the tea bag, add milk, add sugar. Okay, don't say don't add extra information like um if for instance on the picture there isn't a diagram of them going to put the kettle on to boil, then you don't add that, okay, because that's extras. Just state from what you are seeing in the diagram. um so they'll say suggest ways in which um so let's say with our income and expenses, they might say suggest ways in which this person can save money. So in this part of the question, you are providing solutions essentially. Okay, so you're giving solutions to how this person could save money. So spend less on fast food. Always like put money away at the beginning of the month before you start spending, that sort of thing. Okay, so when they say suggest blah blah blah, it's usually providing solutions for something. Okay. Sometimes in questions with income and expenditure, they'll ask you to set up an income and expenditure document or fill it in, and then they'll ask you, can this person like save money at the end of the month? And then you'll have to say yes or no. And then if it's no, you'll go cool. They'll say suggest reasons. Um, Either suggest reasons why this person can't save, um, or suggest ways in which they could save in the future. Okay. And then our last one, which is I think something that comes up almost the most often, they'll say, okay, so let's say they say a person spends this much in a month and they make this much in a month. And then they say using calculations, and it's usually, so they'll say using calculations. So they'll give you the spending and the income, and they'll say this person says that they can afford a car of this much a month. Use calculations to validate the statement. Okay. So what you do there is, so firstly, you have to use the calculations. You need to go and do a calculation. So do a calculation. Okay. And then once you've done the calculation, there must be an end statement that will say something like, so you'll do your, so it'll be your, okay, I'm just gonna go like calculation over here. Cool. Then you'll say, cool, therefore they can afford the car because there is enough money left at the end of the month. Okay, so you need to just have that ending statement to say, okay, yes, I've done my calculation. According to my calculations, they can actually afford this car, and this is why. Okay. So those are just some of the action verbs that I identified in the papers, and it's across paper 1 and paper 2. Even if I used more paper 1 examples, it is across the board. So it's not like just hinting towards one paper. One other thing I wanted to just touch on, I marked it in my, because we spoke about this a lot during when I was going through the examples, but with rounding off. So I'm just gonna move this up. Okay. So in the beginning of a maths lit paper, they'll say round off. They'll either say round off to two decimal places, or in the context given. Okay. So I think a lot of you don't really grasp what they mean when we say in the context given. So I just rounding off. Okay. So I just wanted to explain that to you. So basically what it is that there are certain contexts that rounding off like exists in, and according to that you need to know how to round off. So one instance is when we're working with money. Okay, we always round off to two decimal places. So your money is always given as like, I don't know, 20 Rand and 59 cents. Okay, it's always given like that. Unless they ask you to obviously round off to the nearest Rand, to the nearest 10 Rand, that's different. If they don't give you any of that, then you're rounding off in the context of money. And oh, and you basically are just, sorry, just trying to figure out what happened. There we go. And you just make sure that you round off to two decimal places. So that was the first thing. The next thing is that, oh, so this, we did this example. So when you are buying, let's say quantities, okay, so for instance, paint, tiles, that sort of thing. Um, so you always round up, and I'll explain to you why. So if we get a question and they say our answer comes to like we need 154,5 tiles. Ooh, okay, sorry. There we go. Okay, 150. No, no, no. Okay, just like my pen glitches like this sometimes. Just give it a second. um, okay, let's see if it works now. There we go. Oh no. Okay, let me just. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, now it's fine. No. No. Okay, I'm just gonna leave the other scribbles on for now. Sorry about that. Okay, so if they say you do the calculation and you get that you need 154.5 tiles, it's always you always get to this point and either you forget to round off or you round off incorrectly. Okay, so either we can round it down to 154 or you can round it up to 155. According to our rule, we always round up. So this is where we would have to be, right? Um, and the reason we do that is because if I buy 154 tiles, let's say for instance, this is my area I need to tile. Okay, here's all my spots for tiling. Okay, very skewed drawing. But essentially what's going to happen if you haven't bought this extra zero point 0.5, this red spot here is going to be like it's going to be untiled. So if you go for this answer and you round it down, you're going to have too few tiles. So when you have these sorts of things, you always round up. Okay. Another example is if I calculate how many liters of paint I need and I get 2,35 liters. Okay. But they say, okay, paint tins are only sold in like 2.3 liters. So I decide, okay, cool, then I'm just going to buy the 2.3 liters. So now I'm going to have a wall that's painted everywhere, and then this little part over here, so it's painted everywhere else. But this little part over here is just going to be completely blank because I forgot about this 0.05 I needed. Okay. So for this example, then you'd have to go and buy 2 times 2.3 liters of tins of paint because you need this extra 0.5. Okay. So what's the end? The conclusion for this is that when we are buying quantities, we always round up. And then another thing, just to link this to the types of questions, they'll always ask you. The like last question in the paper might be, um, this person decided to buy 10 more towels. Why did they decide to do this? So you always buy extra materials just in case of breakage, in case your measurements were incorrect, that sort of thing. Okay, so um, another thing could be they ask you why did the person decide to buy an extra tin of paint, and your answer would be just in case they want to paint another part of the house the same color. It could be that they want to go over with another coat of paint. Okay, so all of those sorts of things would be under a suggest a reason that they would buy more tiles. Okay, so suggest, so give solutions as do I. um and then one other calculation thing. So the last one is that when we have calculations involving people, okay, so this comes up often in data handling. When you have calculations involving people, it's either up or down. Okay, so it can be either up or down that you round off. It all depends on the context. So more often than not, you do round up, but I'm going to give you an example of this. Oh, I wrote it down here. Okay. Oh, so I was reading a thing earlier, and it said there were 450. Okay, so let's say I'm just going to do it up here. So there are 450 people in a hall, or can fit into a hall, and someone wants to go and have a fundraiser there. And they say, okay, cool. You calculate what percentage of tickets were bought before, and they said, okay, 77. I think it was like 77.5% of tickets were sold. So that is going to be, where did my calculator go? Okay, let me just use this. So it ended up being 450 times 77.5%. Okay, yeah. So it was 348. This was the answer for this. 75 people, essentially, right? But for this example, we can't have, so 348 is fine, but you can't have 0.75 of a person. So in this instance, because it's fundraising, you can like use a little bit of logic and you can say, okay, I'm going to say then that, and because the whole is like, there's a capacity, right? I'm going to round up. I'm going to say this is 349 people, because if I say 348 and they go and sell the extra tickets, the other to make up 100%, and we end up with 451 people in the hall, it might like break regulations and codes and that sort of thing. Okay, so in this instance, you round up to 349 people. If there's an instance where like there's enough space for everyone, then you could have just rounded down and said, okay, it doesn't really matter because even if I sell more tickets later, if I have more people in the venue, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's just another one. So I think people's the most confusing one for rounding off, but the ones that come up more often is your money and your buying quantities. Okay. Um, yeah. And then I think that's all the like very important tips and tricks that I've identified for today. Because we have gone through other stuff while I was working through the other examples and the papers. So I'm really hoping this helps you guys, and especially these action words, because I think that's something that maybe isn't highlighted enough. But yeah, I hope that you guys learned a little bit from this session. And good luck with your exams, and I hope that it all goes well, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran so much, Raihaanah, for joining us today. And yes, Ameen to your du'as. We're hoping that everything goes well for our grade 12s for this year, 2023, and also in the subjects that you have covered, mathematics, literacy. Shukran once again, and all the best to you as well with your tutoring and also preparing grade 12s ahead of the examinations. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.